So let us continue the discussion on the topic of registration. We have covered one lecture of registration where I discussed with you section 22, where registration is mandatory. The suppliers who have to take mandatory registration, this is what I have discussed with you in the earlier class, section 22. Now, if you remember, in section 22, there were 4 subsections. I have discussed with you in the last lecture only section 22 subsection 1, where aggregate turnover of a supplier exceeds 20 lakh rupees in a financial year, in current financial year, then that supplier is liable to take GST registration. If that supplier doesn't take registration, then he will be liable as per the provisions of the law. So liability means compulsory liable. I have no choice. I have to apply for GST registration. This was what section 22(1). In 4 states, the limit of aggregate turnover per financial year was 10 lakh rupees as per our discussion. Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland and Tripura. Other than these 4 states, in any UT or in any state, the aggregate turnover limit is 20 lakh for registration. I also discussed with you in section 22(1) what that any state can make a request to raise the limit of turnover for the purpose of registration from 10 lakh to any higher amount, but not exceeding 20 lakh rupees. And if recommendations of the council are also in favor of this request of the state, then government can notify this. Similarly, any state can request to increase the limit of 20 lakh rupees aggregate turnover to 40 lakh rupees. But the state can make a request only for those suppliers who are engaged exclusively in the supply of goods. And if recommendation of the council also comes in this favor, then this request can also be accommodated through notification by the government of India. This is what we have discussed. Now I will discuss with you 3 more categories where a person is compulsorily liable to take registration. It is my section 22 subsection 2, subsection 3 and subsection 4. Act already I have shown. Now let me directly start the provision and let us wind up section 22 so that we can start 23. So what we have discussed earlier, section 22(1), where who are compulsory liable, whose aggregate, the people whose aggregate turnover, the person whose aggregate turnover in a financial year, current financial year does not exceed 20 lakh rupees or 10 lakh. Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland and Tripura. In these 4 states, the limit is 10 lakh. In other states, the limit is 20 lakh for the purpose of registration. The moment your aggregate turnover exceeds this limit, you have to take registration. This is what section 22 says. So you should not go by my word that you have to take. I am discussing only section 22. The moment you go on, maybe other points will also come, where I will show that or I will tell you that even if aggregate turnover exceeds these limits, you don't have to take registration. But right now, since I am standing at 22, I am dealing with 22 provisions. The moment I start 23, I will merge 22 and 23. We have to read then these two sections collectively, and then we can frame the discussion or the decision. So always no section can be read in isolation. Knowledge of act is complete when you know the entire act. Okay, for the time being, what my point is that if my aggregate turnover exceeds 20 lakh or 10 lakh, I have to take registration as a supplier. So I'm talking as a supplier. Now, this is new point, section 22 subsection 2. Now, under GST law, so many other acts were merged. Octroi, entertainment, so many other acts were there. Common, which you should remember, is excise, VAT, sale tax. These points you should remember. Now, on 1st July 17, Act of GST made applicable in India for everyone. All other existing laws which were merged in GST were made inoperative, you can say, or you can say were by default merged. So what was the cutoff date basically? 1st July 17. On 1st July 17, in India there was GST. Now, if you want me as a supplier, if you want me that I should be ready on 1st July 17, how can I do the business if you don't give me GST registration on 1st July 17? So I need registration, I need the number, GST number. So it was necessary for the government to give some days in advance so that people can apply for registration, so that they are ready with their registration number on 1st July. So that is known as appointed day. Appointed day. An appointed day is fixed in the Act as 22nd June 2017. This is the appointed day under GST laws. In every act, there can be different appointed day. Maybe some acts do not at all need appointed day, so it depends upon the situation. But under GST laws, appointed day is 22nd June 17. And what this second point says, that whosoever is registered already, any person who is already registered, one day immediately preceding the appointed day, appointed day, that means who is registered on 22nd June 17 under existing laws. Which existing laws? Not all the laws of India, those laws which are merged into GST, which are subsumed into GST, which became a part of GST. Under existing laws. So persons who are already registered on 21st June 17 under existing laws are by default made liable to be registered on 22nd June. So till 21st June, they were not compulsory liable under GST laws. On 22nd June, by default, they become compulsory liable. This is the point. So Mr. X was registered under VAT, value added tax regime, on 21st June 17. By default, on 22nd June 17, I became legally liable to be registered under GST laws. That's it. This is my second point, which I have completed today. I'm discussing the situation of compulsory registration, turnover based registration, then existing law based registration. Third point, when any business is transferred, of a business by one person to another. To another person. Transfer of a business by one person to another person in a scheme, or not in a scheme, you can say by succession or otherwise, it does not matter, by succession or otherwise, but as a going concern, not for shutting down the business. The intention was that now another person will carry forward this business, so but as a going concern. For example, if father dies, normally what happens? Normally what happens? For example, if Mr. X father dies, who was having utensils business, normally the business will now be run by Mr. X children. So maybe son or daughter or daughter-in-law. Normally this is what happens. Earlier only sons were given the responsibility, not responsibility, sons were by default treated as the inheritor. But now in at high level family businesses, now we can see that even daughters are given equal rights. That why not a daughter? And in fact, daughter-in-law are also given equal rights now. So this is the change in the scenario because of education, trust, etc. So now by default, what happens if father dies? Then who is the new person? New person may be son, daughter, daughter-in-law, or maybe any other person. So this new person by default becomes liable. So when business is transferred from one person to another, either by succession or by sale, for example, sale. Maybe Mr. X wants to sell the business to Mr. Y. Now, as far as family is concerned, X and Y are not related. So they don't have any family relationship. Okay, it's cross sign. They don't have any family relationship, but the business is sold. So by default, this new person becomes liable. So transfer of a business by one person to another person by succession, otherwise a sale, but as a going concern, then the new person is liable. So legally liable, you can say, liable for registration. If new person doesn't take, then there will be penalty and prosecutions as per the provisions of law. And then fourth point. Fourth point, transfer in a scheme of amalgamation and demerger. Amalgamation or demerger. So basically, amalgamation demerger can happen of a company only. A firm cannot amalgamate. A sole proprietorship cannot amalgamate. Amalgamation or demerger, these two things can happen for a company only. And whenever company is involved, by default ROC becomes involved. ROC means registrar of companies. By default ROC becomes involved. So whenever under any amalgamation or demerger any transfer happens, whether because of any court order, whether because of high court orders, tribunals order, or otherwise, even if without any order, etc. Whatever is the case, even if without these things. So court's order is not necessary whenever amalgamation or demerger happens. So we need to check when the ROC has given this certificate of incorporation, because this certificate is necessary to incorporate a company. On that day, the day certificate of insurance is issued, the day the new person or the new company, new person I should say, rather I should use the word, the new person becomes liable for registration by default. And who is this new person? If it is amalgamation, the new company is known as amalgamated. And if it is demerger, then the new company is known as resulting company. I hope you remember these 2 points. These are new cases. Now, with this, I am complete with section 22. So there are 4 different situations or 4 persons who are compulsory liable. 1, if their aggregate turnover exceeds the limit as mentioned in the act. Second, if they are those who are already registered on 21st June 2017. Third, if there is any transfer happening, then the new person. Fourth, if any amalgamation or demerger happening, then this new company. The date on which when ROC issues the certificate. In the earlier case of transfer, the date when the succession is complete. That's it. Now please raise your hand if this section 22 is 100% clear to you, so that I can start a new topic. Any problem you can ask, otherwise please raise your hand. Any problem? Without any hesitation, please unmute and ask me, otherwise raise your hand so that I get the idea that I should proceed now. Okay, now let me discuss the next concept. So I'm proceeding to now next section. I will show you the original act also, but before that, let me tell you briefly what I'm going to do. (23) Yes, this is what persons who are not liable. So it is exactly opposite to section 22. Persons who are not liable for registration. I would like to first show you the original act now, and then I will discuss this point. Now this is the point. This is the Act section 23. Let me first read it for you. Persons not liable for registration. This Act clearly says that following persons are not liable for registration. Subsection 1. The following persons shall not be liable to registration, namely. Now, who are these people? Clause A. Any person engaged exclusively, this word is necessary to be learned, exclusively, in the business of supplying goods or services or both that are not liable to be taxed. Can you tell me those goods or services which are not liable to be taxed? Can anyone tell me right now which are those goods which are not liable to be taxed?
Alcohol.
Not only alcohol, you should use complete sentence, alcohol for human consumption. If alcohol
Yes,
is
sir.
used in medicine purposes, it's liable. Alcohol for human consumption. And 5 petroleum products also which are not yet liable because government has not yet finalized the date. So if I'm a supplier of petrol, then I am not supposed to take GST registration or wholly exempt from tax. There are so many products, so many dairy items or general use items which are totally tax free under GST or under the IGST. So whether I am doing interstate supply or intrastate supply, but if I am a supplier of those goods or services or both which are either not liable or which are liable but taxed at 0%, then I am not supposed to take any GST registration. Why unnecessarily government should unnecessarily put me in any stress? If I'm not liable to pay GST, why I should take? So it is basically for the purpose of promoting simplicity. Let us exclude those people who are engaged exclusively in such supplies on which there is no GST. Clause B. An agriculturist. Who are agriculturists? I cannot frame my own definition. I have to read section 2 of the CGST Act. And when you read this section 2, let me for the time being simplify agriculturists. These are basically farmers, you can say, who are cultivating lands and through their own labor or through their family help or through the hired labor. So basically farmer, for simple sense, you can say farmers. To the extent of supply of produce out of cultivation of land. So any farmer will cultivate the land, will be having some crops. When the crops are supplied, or whenever any produce which is generated out of cultivating land that is supplied, flowers may also be supplied. Flower, you cannot say flower is a crop. Flowers are not in crops, but flowers are also generated because of cultivation of land. So that is also a farmer, you can say simple language. A farmer is not supposed to take GST registration, but farmer can be doing other businesses also. Not only cultivation of land, a farmer can do other business also. So Act has clearly said that if a farmer is doing other business, then provisions have to be checked whether registration is required or not. But if the farmer is supplying the products out of cultivation of lands, and then to the extent of that produce which is supplied out of cultivation of land, GST registration is not required. These two are written in the Act. That means intention of writing in the Act is what? As far as these 2 points are concerned, these are permanent in nature. Almost permanent, because amending Act is not so easy. So almost permanent. But apart from these almost permanent things, some things depends upon situations. So that is why one point is kept open in the Act. Subsection 2. The government may, on the recommendations of the Council, by notification, specify the category of persons who may be exempt from obtaining registration under GST Act. Now, these two are clear, engaged exclusively and farmer. But India is a big nation. Anytime any problem can arise. So government has kept one point open, that on the recommendations of GST Council, we can notify those people who may be exempt for some time or for a longer time, it depends, from obtaining registration. That's it. This is what section 23 is. So here I need to tell you these notifications. So now let me simplify this 23. I wanted to show you the Act, and now let me come to my screen where I will start writing. Now, who are those persons who are not liable? First point, who are those persons who are not liable? First point, persons who are engaged exclusively. Exclusive, this is necessary. Exclusively in supply of goods or services which are, first point, not liable to GST. Second point, which are liable but exempt under GST. In these two cases, this person is not liable to take GST registration. Example, now I hope you should tell me. Mr. X, supplier of petrol, aggregate turnover 5 crore rupees. Aggregate turnover rupees 5 crore. Can you tell me whether this person is liable for registration or not? Answer yes for registration or no for registration. Can you tell me? Can you tell me? Can anyone unmute, or can you unmute and tell me whether this supplier of petrol aggregate turnover 5 crore in Delhi or in Kerala, for example, is this person liable for GST registration or not? This is what my point is. Can anyone tell me yes or no? Please think and reply. Try to reply. I will correct you if in case you make any problem or make any mistake.
Sir, I think not, because the limit is up to 5 crore. And if it's beyond 5 crore, then it's raised. Then he's liable. Mr. X is liable. If it's below 5 crore or 5 crore, then he's not liable.
15 crore. Then what is your answer?
I will be liable.
Okay. Any other answer? Any other answer from your other side? Please try to tell. It will help in increasing your knowledge and your confidence also.
Sir.
Yes.
So so petrol is not liable under GST. I
Hmm.
didn't see it's petrol. Yeah, it's not liable
Petrol
under
is
GST.
not liable under GST.
Yes, sir.
So your answer is what? That not liable.
No, sir.
What is your answer? Not liable or liable?
It's not liable.
Okay, and as far as this limit 5 crore, 15 crore, let me make it as 2 crore rupees. Then what will be your answer?
Then not liable, sir.
So in any case, this Mr. X is not liable. This is what your answer is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what about that 5 crore limit? Can you explain me what about that 5 crore limit? I'm not aware about that 5 crore limit.
Sir, that was just a confusion, nothing else.
Yeah. So the limit is 20 lakh rupees and 10 lakh. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask others. Diksha, can you try to give the answer, Diksha? Not liable or liable?
Not liable.
Why?
Limit is 5 crore.
Okay. Yugam, can you give the answer, Yugam?
Yes, not liable because according to me also, as far as I remember, petrol is not liable under GST.
No, no, there is no need for you to remember. I'm telling you, petrol is not under GST. Now, what is
Yes,
the answer?
that's why it's not liable.
So even if the aggregate turnover is more than 20 lakhs, still not liable.
Mm,
Answer is
So
yes.
then he is
yes, yes,
liable.
because
No, 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 no. Answer is yes, that he is never liable. Now, this is what I would like to tell you, that when you read the act, let me share this screen now. Is the slide still visible? Is this slide still visible?
Yes, sir.
Answer is this: not liable for registration. Why? Now, when you read collectively section 22 and 23, this is how the confusion can come. And that is why I repeatedly say that you read the act. Don't fall into the trap of simplicity. You have to read the original things. At higher level, original things prevail. Secondary knowledge is not much required at higher level. Section 22, subsection 1 says if aggregate turnover exceeds what? 20 lakh. First of all, there is no 5 crore something limit. There is no such limit of 5 crore or 10 lakh. This is what section 22(1) says. Diksha, am I right? Do you remember this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so if this person is in Kerala, then 20 lakh limit is there. Am I right? But now what 23 says? Not liable. So if you are a supplier of petrol, and I told you that petrol is not leviable under GST. It is not leviable under GST laws. Do you remember under which section it is written? Under which section it is written? It is written in 9(2) and 5(2) of IGST. It was the first section, main, basically, which I discussed. GST date is not yet finalized, so it is not liable. Then why will I get confused in the turnover limit? Even if my turnover is 1000 crore rupees, 22 is a separate section. It was saying that who are liable. 23 comes after 22. So that means I will give now importance to next later section. 23 is the later section. 23 says these are not liable. Then why will I check the limits of section 22? Are you getting my point or not? I read 22, then I read higher section 23. It says that these people are not at all liable. So I will not get confused in that turnover limit. Aggregate turnover is not at all making any sense when I'm reading section 23. It clearly says that these people are not liable, and it is not mentioned. I have shown the act. And when this point or subsection you read in the act, nowhere it is written that as per the limits of aggregate turnover. No, it is not at all mentioned. So it is blanket, it is clear cut case. Whenever you are engaged in supplying these products or services which are not liable to GST or liable but exempt under GST, you are not supposed to take registration. Why will I check the aggregate turnover limit? It is not required. Please raise your hand if this point is clear. Please raise your hand if this point is clear. Okay, because when I'm reading section 23, the line simply says every person who is supplying those goods or services which are not liable to GST or supplying goods or services which are liable but exempt, and nowhere aggregate turnover is mentioned clearly, then it means then it is clear cut exemption from registration. Aggregate turnover will not come in between the registration and this person who is supplying these products. Now, next point. I hope I'm making some sense. Next point now. I still assume that you can see the slides. Next point now. Agriculturist. Now read the definitions in section 2. I always told you, I have told you earlier also that you should refer section 2 for definitions. Then only frame general definition if something is silent, but it is defined agriculture. So basically those people who are cultivating land from own labor or family labor, you can say, or hired labor, but cultivating land. Now these people, to the extent of supply of produce, and if this produce is from cultivation of land, then agriculture is not liable. And third, notifications. Now I will discuss with you some notifications where some different people are there who are not liable for registration. Let me tell you for the purpose of simplicity. Any person who is engaged in exclusive, again exclusive word come, supply of goods, not services, supply of goods, plus his aggregate turnover does not exceed 40 lakh rupees, then also such people are not liable for registration. So these are through notifications to promote some simplicity in the GST businesses. Any person who is exclusively engaged in supplying goods, not services, do remember it is goods only, as well as if the aggregate turnover does not exceed 40 lakh, non-registration. But this is not clear-cut case. It comes with some riders, exceptions. Exceptions means riders. I will tell you some cases where even if you are a supplier of goods only, even if your aggregate turnover is not exceeding 40 lakh rupees, still you are not covered under this exemption of registration notification. Whether you are liable for registration or not, then you have to check other sections, but you cannot claim the benefit of this exempted notification. This is my first point. Then those persons who are
Excuse me, sir.
yes.
I just wanted to take a look at this page.
Yeah,
Thank you,
please. Those persons who are supplying those goods and services which are covered under reverse charge. What do I mean by reverse charge? Where recipient will pay the tax, which are covered under reverse charge mechanism. Now, do you remember reverse charge mechanism cases? Do you remember the sections 93, 94 and 54, 53, 54? Do you remember? Kindly tell me, unmute and tell me, because when I'm writing I cannot see other screen, so I have to depend on what you say. I cannot see the team now. So do you remember? Please unmute and tell me 93, 94, 53, 54. Do you remember levy and collection? It was section 9, where we have section 9(1), where supplier pay the tax. 9(2) related to petroleum products. 9(3) and 9(4) where recipient pay the tax. 9(5) where electronic commerce operator pay the tax. I hope you remember. If not, then you have to practice. Now, in these supplies 9(3) and 9(4), recipient pay the tax. But this provision, this notification says every person who is supplying the goods which are taxable under reverse charge, where recipient will pay the tax, under 9(3), under 9(3) only. So 9(4) and 5(4) I am excluding here. So when a recipient is liable to pay tax under 9(3), section 9 subsection 3. If you remember, there was a difference in section 9 subsection 3 and 9 subsection 4. In 9 subsection 3, bidi, wrapper, tendu leaves, these things are covered. In 9 subsection 4, promoters are covered, cement promoters, etc. You have to revise those concepts. So for reverse charge mechanism, there are two sections, section 9.3 and 9.4. But exemption is available only to those who are supplying the products or services which are covered under reverse charge of 9.3 only and not 9.4. That's it. All those people who are supplying those goods and services, like for example, Mr. X is supplying goods and services to Mr. Y. On this supply, RCM is applicable, reverse charge mechanism. So Mr. X will not pay the tax. Who will pay the tax to the government? Mr. Y. So in that case, government says why Mr. X should be asked to take a registration. So that is why this exemption is there. Mr. X in that case is advised not to take a registration. No need. Because when recipient will pay the tax, why do we need your registration? That's it. This is my second notification. I will show you the screenshot of simplified language. For the timing, I am making you understand that what concepts are there. Third point. Third point is handicraft goods. Handicraft goods. So basically, handicraft goods are those where less machines are involved, more human labor is involved. It's a sign of Indian tradition, culture up to some extent. Mostly done in rural areas or not in cities basically. So to help these people who are engaged in handicraft goods, government says that you are not supposed to take a registration. You're not supposed to take a registration. And fourth and deep point is electronic commerce operator. Point D is electronic commerce operator. Supplies through electronic commerce operator. Supply of services. This is my fourth notification. I will show you now in detail through electronic commerce operator. I don't know whether you remember now section 9.5 or not. This is my 9.5. I don't know you remember now or not. But what was there in 9.5? Do you remember in 9.5 what was there? Can anyone tell me? If anyone remember, without wasting the time, I'm giving you 10 seconds. Can anyone tell me what was there in 9.5? Can anyone tell me?
So the commerce operator will pay the GST instead of the supplier.
Very good, very good, very good. In 9.5, if supplier is supplying the services to the recipient, very good, through electronic commerce operator, then ECO is liable to deposit the tax to the government and not the supplier. But it was also having some exception that in case of 3 supplies, accommodation, transport of passengers, and third was housekeeping. If you remember that in these cases, if these suppliers are registered, in these cases, if this supplier is registered, then ECO will not pay the tax, supplier themselves will pay. This was the exception. This was 9.5. So now related to this, let me discuss with you the notification. So let me show you my Word file and I will make you understand these notifications through my Word file, where I will ask you to take this screenshot. But first you understand and then I will tell you that now to take this screenshot. So first you understand, then I will myself ask you to take this screenshot. This is my first notification. So these are those people who are not liable to take a registration. This point. persons making only those supplies which are taxable on reverse charge basis. I'm starting reading. The persons who are only engaged in making those supplies of taxable goods or services which are liable to be paid on reverse charge by the recipient under section 9(3) are not liable for registration. I told you this. If I'm supplying those goods and services on which tax is liable to be paid by recipient under section 9 subsection 3, then I'm not liable for registration. But the point is exclusively. That means I'm not supplying other goods and services. All my supplies are liable to be taxed. On all my supplies, tax is liable to be paid by the recipient under section 9(3). Then I'm not liable to take registration. This is what section 23 says. Next point. I told you this also. When I'm supplying goods only and my aggregate turnover does not exceed 40 lakh, then I'm not supposed to take any registration. Any person who is engaged in exclusive supply of goods and whose aggregate turnover does not exceed 40 is not liable, but it comes with riders. So the following persons are not exempt from registration under this notification. The following persons are not exempt from registration under this notification. Like persons who need to take compulsory registration under section 24. I told you only one section, section 22, which deals with compulsory registration. We have another section also, which I will discuss in the next class, 24, which also deals with compulsory registration. So if I am required to take compulsory registration under 24, then I cannot claim this notification benefit. Even if I am a supplier of goods, even if my aggregate turnover is only 2 lakh rupees, but if I am liable to take compulsory registration under section 24, then I cannot take the plea of this exempted notification. It's not for me. So I told you that this exempted notification of registration comes with a rider, and these are those riders. Next point. If I am engaged in these supplies, ice creams, pan masalas, tobacco, then even if I am only supplier of these goods, even if my turnover does not exceed 40 lakh, I cannot take the benefit of this exempted notification that I am not liable to be registered. You can be liable under other sections. These points does not say that these people are liable. Whether these people are liable or not, that depends upon other sections. But these people are not exempted under this provision. I hope you are understanding my point. These people cannot take the plea of exemption from registration under this heading. But it does not mean that these are by default compulsory liable. Whether these people are liable or not, it depends upon other sections. I hope I'm making some sense that these people are not exempt from registration. Now there is a difference. If I say that I am not exempt from registration, it does not make me compulsory liable. If I am saying that I am not exempt from registration, it does not make me compulsory liable. I am not exempt from registration under this point. Whether I am compulsory liable or not, it depends upon those sections. So I will tell you this later on. Okay, so who have to take compulsory registration under section 24? These people cannot take the benefit of this exempted notification. Supplier of these products cannot take the benefit of this exempted notification. If I am engaged in making intra-state supplies in these 4 states where the aggregate turnover limit is 10 lakh rupees. So what is the name of those states? Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. If I am engaged in making intra-state supply in these states, then I cannot take the benefit of this notification. Now whether I am liable or not, it depends upon those sections which deals with liability. Similarly, if I am engaged in making intra-state supplies, you can see this word intra-state supplies in Arunachal, Meghalaya, Puducherry, Sikkim, Telangana and Uttarakhand. I cannot take the plea of exemption of registration under this provision. Whether I am liable or not, it depends upon other sections. Similarly, if I myself want to take registration, government says no issue. Even if my turnover is 100 rupees, but I want to say that I want to take registration, government says no issue. This exempted notification is not applicable. Or suppose I am already registered, but this year my turnover is only 100 rupees or 10,000 rupees. Now still I want to continue with the registration. When government says no issue, then this provision is not applicable. So if a registered person wants to continue the registration, then this point is not applicable. So these are 6 riders, you can say, where even if you are a supplier of goods, even if your aggregate turnover does not exceed 40 lakh, still you cannot take the benefit of exemption from registration. Now whether you are liable or not, that is none of the concern of section 23. Please take the screenshot of this page and please raise your hand. Please take the screenshot of this page and please raise your hand. Hurry up without wasting the time. Please take the screenshot. It will help you in revising the concept. Please take the screenshot and raise your hand. Hurry up, please. And if possible, note down these points in your copy, because at the end you'll be having so many screenshots, so you will not remember exactly which are relevant. So better you note it down these in a copy. Anyhow, I'm proceeding now. So let me discuss remaining 2 notifications also. 2 I have covered. After remaining these 2, section 23 will be also over. This was 3rd notification. I told you ECO case. That's it. Persons whose aggregate turnover does not exceed 20 lakh or 10 lakh in the state of Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, and who are making intra-state supply of services through ECO. These people are not liable for compulsory registration. So we have 2 conditions. First, I am making intra-state supply. I am making intra-state supply through electronic commerce operator, as well as my turnover does not exceed 20 lakh or 10 lakh. Okay, so there are 2 points. First, I am making intra-state supply through ECOs, supply of services, as well as my turnover does not exceed these limits. Then I am not supposed to take GST registration as a supplier. However, as far as these 3 services are covered, which are already written in section 9.5, transportation of passengers, accommodation, housekeeping. Now, if I am a supplier of these services, even if intrastate, even if my turnover does not exceed the limit, then I'm not exempt from registration under this notification. Now, whether I'm liable or not, it depends upon other provisions. I hope you are getting my point. I'm using the same language. First, the notification says if you are a supplier of services, an intrastate supplier through ECOs, and if your aggregate turnover does not exceed those limits 20 lakh or 10 lakh, then as a supplier you are not supposed to take registration. Why? Because ECO will pay the tax. However, if you are a supplier of services of transportation of passengers, housekeeping and accommodation, then even if your aggregate turnover does not exceed the limit, even if you are supplying only intrastate services, these services intrastate only, still you cannot take the benefit of this exemption. But whether you are liable to take registration or not, this you check other sections. Section 23 will not say anything on this point. Please take the screenshot of this page also and please raise your hand. Hurry up, take the screenshot of this page also and please raise your hand. I will tell you those screenshots which are relevant. If you simply take the screenshots of all the pages, then it will not make any sense. You will only waste your time. So I will tell you those which are relevant. Hurry up, please take the screenshot. Hurry up, please. Okay, then let me proceed. And last notification. This is my last notification. Handicraft goods. If I am a supplier of handicraft goods interstate, if I am a supplier of handicraft goods interstate, and if my turnover does not exceed those limits 20 lakh or 10 lakh, plus if I am liable to take PAN number and generate e-way bill, I am liable to take PAN number and generate e-way bill, then I am not supposed to take GST registration. I am a supplier of handicraft goods. I am supplying these interstate, not intra, interstate. My turnover does not exceed the limits and I am liable to apply for PAN number and generate e-way bill. then if these conditions are satisfied, then also as a supplier of handicraft goods, I'm not supposed to take any GST registration. Please take the screenshot of this page also. Hurry up, please take the screenshot. Okay, very good. Now with this, today's discussion is over. So today I have covered with you section 23 basically, where you are engaged in supplying exclusively exempt goods or goods which are not leviable. If you are an agriculturist, and 4 notifications related to what? Supplies of goods or services which are taxable on reverse charge under section 9(3). Notified handicraft subject to some conditions. Exclusively supplying goods and the turnover if does not exceed 40 lakh. But it is not absolute, it comes with some riders. So in these riders which I have discussed, like states, etc., then you are not entitled to take the benefit of this limit of 40 lakh and goods. Now whether you are liable or not, it depends upon other sections. Similarly, 4th notification was when you are a supplier of services through electronic commerce operator, if the turnover does not exceed the limit, and if this supply is what, intrastate, then also you are not supposed to take GST registration. Of course, in case of 3 services, housekeeping and transportation of passengers, and third point was accommodation. In these cases, you cannot take the benefit of this exemption. Whether you are liable or not, it depends upon other sections. That's all from my side. You cannot be 100% perfect in registration till you cover section 24 and 25 also. So for the time being, what we have discussed, you have to revise it. But no need to gain any expertise on these 2 sections, 22 and 23. Let us read these sections collectively, 22, 23, 24, 25 and section 9 of the CGST. Reading of all these 5 will make us perfect in the topic of registration. That's all from my side. Goodbye.